This lesson will cover Chapter 8 on political parties. Political parties are organizations that recruit, nominate, and elect party members to office in order to control the government. There are two major political parties, Democrats and Republicans. Political parties have specific functions, and parties can be distinguished from other political organizations through four defining characteristics. First, political parties run candidates under their own label or affiliation. Political parties seek to govern. Unlike interest groups, they have a vested interest in getting people elected who identify with their party. Political parties have broad concerns, and they're focused on a lot of different issues. Typically, when you go to a political party website, you can look at their platforms, meaning stances that they've taken on a variety of different issues. Political parties are also quasi-public organizations that have a special relationship with the government. When we see how the government is organized between majority and minority, for example, that's a direct way we can see how political parties have such a strong part in dictating the structure of how government institutions function. So how do political parties engage individuals or everyday average American citizens? Well, political parties represent one of the main channels that citizens can make their voices heard. It obviously plays a major role in voting, as the two major political parties can dictate who runs and individuals decide who they want to vote for. Very commonly align party lines. Historically, political parties were more exclusive, but now we see them as being more inclusive, trying to garner the support of more diverse groups of people, as well as many people as possible. Both parties are trying to be more inclusive of women, ethnic and racial minorities, and younger voters, and they're also increasingly diverse in their participation, which contributes to the party's health. Historically, we know that the excluded groups from participating included women, African Americans, and Native Americans. So what do political parties do? Well, one, they try to organize using grassroots tactics. So grassroots organizing means tasks that involve direct contact with voters or potential voters. This is made particularly popular with internships, which a lot of younger people will often take on, and this is a way that they get politically active, but they try to get and educate as many people as possible and try to encourage more and more people to vote, particularly for candidates of a political party. This includes volunteering on or contributing to party-run campaigns, volunteering in party headquarters, and running for office. Political parties try to foster effective government. Obviously, not everybody agrees that they've been successful. However, that is one of their goals. They also promote civic responsibility among elected officials and give voters an important check on those elected officials. Again, this can be debated, especially with what we've been seeing recently, but generally that is their purpose. Historically, political parties have fostered cooperation between divided interests and factions. Factions could be another word for interest groups. And they also made government more effective and have provided important cues for voters. Again, whether you agree with this or not, it has certainly made things more easy for individuals to identify which one of the two major political parties they more identify with. It can also require or encourage these political parties to take stances on the variety of diverse issues that affect the public. Under the responsible party model, political scientists view that a function of a party is to offer a clear choice to voters by establishing priorities or policy stances different from those of rival parties. There are said to be three faces of political parties. First, there's the party in government. This is made up of elected officials. Then the party in the electorate. These are party identifiers who vote. And lastly, party organization, which happen to be party workers, people who work and are employed by the political party. When we look at political parties, we can certainly find some alignment among certain demographic characteristics. So, white men and people with some college education tend to vote more Republican. African Americans, women, and younger people tend to vote more Democratic. Hispanics are traditionally Democratic leaning, but there are some exceptions. With Cuban Americans, they tend to vote more Republican in comparison to other Hispanic groups. And also, when we look at Hispanics that are more religious or deeply religious, we start to see them move in more of a conservative direction as well. Individuals with a college degree or more are divided, but they tend to lean more Democratic the higher the degree. And the working class is also largely Democratic. The upper middle class is largely Republican, but the middle class is seen to be split evenly. The best predictor, however, is voters' ideology. So those who identify as conservative tend to vote Republican, and those who identify as liberal tend to vote Democratic. Here we can see how these demographics impact the way people voted in the 2016 election between Clinton and Trump. As you can see, it coincides pretty strongly with what was mentioned before, as well as leaning as far as identifying as conservative or liberal. So let's go ahead and break this down. What are some of the specific differences between Democrats and Republicans? We can talk about some general issues. So let's look at the Democratic agenda. Their agenda is to expand the role of government by providing a safety net for the most vulnerable in society. This includes civil rights for African Americans, the expansion of social welfare programs. An example would be the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, which reformed the nation's healthcare system. Looking at expanding LGBTQ plus rights, environmental protection, freedom of choice with respect to abortion, and then comprehensive immigration reform. We can contrast the Democratic agenda with the Republican agenda. And so Republicans advocate for a smaller government that performs fewer social welfare functions. A majority of their priority is to advocate for stronger governmental roles in regulating traditional moral values. And they also are pro-life. They are more inclined to appeal for a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. They support measures that protect business and business owners. They support a decreased role for the federal government, particularly with respect to the economy and social welfare issues. And they oppose the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And they also believe that a larger role should be in the hands of state governments. The two major political parties do share some similarities. Again, the difference may be on the road in which they take to achieve some of the same goals, but both political parties believe in strengthening the economy, growing the economy. They both believe that immigration reform should, be a priority, and they also may be more responsive to natural disasters. They also may believe that there are some issues in which the federal government should be taking more of a strong stance on, but they may disagree as to what those issues are. So how are political parties organized? If we look at figure 8.3, we can see the theoretical structure of political parties. This is a hierarchical model. At the bottom, we have the precinct or the ward organizations. These are everyday average people that might identify with the political party. Then we have municipal committees. So again, these are more the city itself and how it's reflected by the political parties. Then we have county committees, state committees, and then the national committee as well. So as you can see, political party members span all areas of government. The political party includes committees, party leaders, conventions, and workers. They're most visible at the local level, and county and local parties tend to be loosely organized and centered predominantly on elections. State and local political parties typically function separately from the national party, and with respect to political power, county and local parties are the most important components of a party organization. Taking a look at the national parties, every 4 years, the political party activists meet at a national convention to determine their party's nominee for the presidency. The delegates also adopt rules and develop a party platform that describes the party's policy priorities and positions on issues. The national party committees are known as the Democratic National Committee, or the DNC, and the Republican National Committee, or the RNC. The National Committee then elects a national chair. One of the most important roles the national chair plays is raising funds. The money that gets donated to national parties is often redirected to state and local parties, which can be used to help contest elections and mobilize voters on a more local or state level. So again, that money plays a very significant role. The Electoral College system has paved the way for these two political parties to become dominant in politics, and it has had a major influence over civic engagement. Many would argue that just having two political parties being dominant has made it easy to become civically engaged, but there are some critics of that. Some would say that the political parties often disregard some of the more ideological positions that folks may hold. That often in general elections they try to take on more moderate stances, which again can discourage those who have more extreme ideological positions. It's also led to this dualist nature. I mean, truly, when we look at any issue, there are far more than just two sides. Issues are complex. And so, but we do tend to want to confine them to two very polarizing sides because it makes it easier for people to make decisions, claim that they stand on one side versus the other. This has led to the value of the winner-take-all system in the United States, and other nations use a much more proportional representation system than the US does. But because of the emphasis that the United States places on states' rights, this is what has led to the persistence of this type of system. State election laws also happen to favor the system as well, and so there might be specific election rules that may keep other third parties or minor parties from, taking or galvanizing too large a percentage of the voting population. Three of the most popular third parties in the United States include the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the Constitution Party. All of these parties play an important role in bringing issues to the forefront that the major political parties may otherwise would ignore, and they have also helped to push forward stances and positions. For example, the Libertarian and the Constitution Party have definitely put forward issues that the Republican Party has taken on, and of course the Green Party has pushed the Democratic Party to take on issues that it may have historically ignored as well. Let's take a moment to look at Table 8.1 in your textbook. This chart will show different issues and whether or not Republicans or Democrats believe that the government should play a major role on the matter. The larger the number is on the right, the more significant the differences between Republicans and Democrats. So let's look at the ones that they tend to be closer on. Some of the issues they tend to be less polarized on would include advancing space exploration, keeping the country safe from terrorism, managing the immigration system, maybe even responding to natural disasters. Where they're most polarized on would include ensuring access to health care, helping people get out of poverty, and protecting the environment. Figure 8.8 will show you how sometimes the issues, although there are many different stances in which individuals can take, are often presented with polarizing views to make it easier for Americans to pick a political party that best aligns with them. And again, this is probably why a lot of people find it undemocratic, and in addition to that can lead to a lot of hostility between the political parties or the individuals that make up those parties and the stances that they take. In other words, if you were to look at this image and you were to look at this survey, the first thing that an individual is asked is whether or not you believe that government should play a more active role in ensuring individuals' well-being. Right here we can see that already the blue that is typically aligned or associated with Democrats is easily identifiable as yes, and the red, which is often associated with Republicans, is under the no box. So again, this can very much contribute to people fitting into these ideal boxes along party lines.